World Financial Group offers entrepreneurs from all backgrounds the opportunity to start their own business on a level playing field. Dr. Yana Woodhouse, receiving the WCM Wall Street Pioneer Award by the United Black Wall Street of America, Inc., is one of those entrepreneurs.
I see WFG and TFA as a place where African Americans with an entrepreneurial mindset can flourish. And the bonus, we help families and serve the communities across the country.
To learn more about us, go to worldfinancialgroup.com.
We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward-thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.
She was told that she couldn't play with the boys. She was told that they were too big, too rough, too strong. She was told to give up her dreams and move on. She was told to just be pretty, be quiet, be a lady. She was told that women had to stay on their side of the court, stay in your lane. Playing and competing with men was insane. She was told that men and women would never be equal. Dreaming like that would only be linked to your mind, to your soul. She never listened. She knew that their thinking was old. She is magic. She is the definition of spirit. She is what champions are made of. She is now.
Greetings and welcome to Access Wealth Nation on the Soul City Network. I'm Dr. Yana B. Woodhouse, sharing information to get your checkup from the neck up financially. And so today we're going to do some great talking about something that has been a question many times through the years. Do I lease or do I buy a car? And in these times with our economic situation, that is a wonderful opportunity. And we have a special guest to discuss this element because she's done her homework. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about, our aspects of getting a financial checkup from the neck up. It all starts with financial literacy. And since that's the case, we have these books. There's the same book, but one's in Spanish and one's in English, because we want to expand as much as we can to bring financial literacy. It's How Money Works, Stop Being a Sucker. And I know many of us say, well, why are you going to call us a sucker? It sort of stems from what the banks have been doing over the ages, is that when you walk into the bank, look to your left, look to your right, and you get the opportunity to see there's candy. Yay, I got some sweets. They're sweeting me up. Yeah, but how come the sweets have to say that they're dum-dums? They're dum-dum candies, most of them. Now that we've been on the air for so long, I see a lot of banks are now changing up and they're putting their own logo on it, or they're finding another type of candy. But the bottom line is, when you learn the rule of 72, you kind of feel like a sucker. If you don't know what the rule of 72 is, then and would like to, we explain it quite well in the book, How Money Works, Stop Being a Sucker. You can get the book free, sent to you if you just send an email with your address and telephone number. We're not going to call you. We just want to know you got the book. It's at anagenterprisesinc@gmail.com. Now, you can also buy the book for about $20 on Amazon. your choice. But one of your financial literacy elements should be budget. And if you can get something for free as opposed to having to pay for it, that's a first financial lesson you can learn is that free is better. And especially since it has no obligations to you doing anything other than read the book. Okay. And many people, it has been distributed over 500,000 across this country. And so many people have gotten an education, a beginner's education, just to get started. And especially with what's going on in the economy today, you got to look at the fact that I need to know how my money works. I need to know my retirement, my legacy building. All those things are very important. So send us your not your email, because it's not an ebook. I'm sorry. It's a mailed book, solid snail mail. So we need your address and telephone number so we can mail it to you. Also, when you know better, you do better. And when you have a plan, then you definitely are not going to plan to fail. So it's very important that we have some sort of plan. And again, there's a lot of apps out here, and you can do it on your own, but creating your budget and making sure that you have proper protection, making sure that you're building your legacy and you're protecting your proper protection, that all these things, are you building and protecting your family and your goals and your dreams? If that's something you'd like, you're welcome to what we call a discovery call. And in the discovery call, we figure out where you are and where you'd like to be. Again, it is free 99. Okay, you can get a financial needs analysis, and you just dial our office at 646-375-2121. And one of our associates will be glad to walk you through. No obligation. It's just the fact of assisting you. And again, we don't do anything with that information, so feel very safe that we're not going to ask you all these questions that would reveal your identity. Just enough to have your dreams, your goals, and your desires. That's our goal, is to make you financially aware and possibly, only possibly, financially free. It's all in what you do. We can create the plan, but then it has to be implemented. So it's on your hands. If you'd like that, you just call the office, 646-375-2121, and say that you listen to Access Wealth Nation and on the Soul City Network, and you would like to receive a free financial analysis. We will let you know what kind of information we need, and then it's up to you. And then from there, we do what's called a Zoom meeting, where you get the opportunity to get some assistance. That's our basic concept. Now, I'm thinking about anything else that again, this market, I don't want anybody to be frightened of the market. We're always in the market. It's just how much do you have in it, and how much time you have in your investment portfolio before you need to tap into it. So remember that. Again, we are aired on Soul City Network, but also you can hear us on WHCR 90.3 FM from City College and get an earful of the information. Or also you can come back to the network, or you can also be seen, watch the previous shows. You can watch that on Soul City, Soul City on Facebook, and also YouTube. We generally have our shows at 6 p.m. on Thursdays. Every Thursday at 6 p.m., we share a little bit of information. If there's something in particular that you want to hear about, please send us an email at anagenterprisesinc@gmail.com, and we'll be glad to address it. So, that being said, I did all of the things I'm supposed to cover. I think I've covered everything. So now I know the excitement is here. It's interesting in the world of where we are today. Number one, cars are very limited inventory. And many of people are trying to figure out, what do I do? How can I afford a car? And what's the best method for me to be able to get a car? Do I purchase? Do I lease? What are some of the things I need to know about? And so sometimes you go and you get someone who has, I have guests that have had awesome experiences and knowledge. And I think that more so, when you go to a car this dealer, you end up with folks just trying to sell you something. That's my feeling like with the financial service industry. We as financial educators are there to educate, but many of the financial educators and financial advisors are out here just to sell you something. Well, the same thing I feel about car dealerships. They've got their hand in your pocket. So how do we learn more about that? I have an expert who has done her true due diligence. And I've been amazed with her talent in being able to help people decide whether they should finance a car or should they lease the car. And her knowledge is extensive. And I say this is a multifaceted young woman. She is also our head of marketing and special events for Soul City. And when I've heard her talk through the years, and she's even helped me make decisions on what I should do. So I just, with no further ado, I'd like to bring on my guest, and keep your ears open because you're going to learn a lot today. I'm bringing on Miss Jasmine Pfeiffer.
Hey, Yana.
Hey there. Welcome to Access Wealth Nation.
Yes, Access Wealth Nation. Yes.
I'm so happy to have you on. I know I have referred many people to you to get help. And as a matter of fact, during the pandemic, we were throwing everybody at you because it was people just didn't know, but they needed their car. They needed, and many a times we do, and especially with COVID, a lot of folks like myself don't want to travel on the trains, and sometimes we'll do the bus, but most of the time we don't want to go. We want to drive.
Yeah.
And I know the city of New York is not in favor of us driving, but I have paid my dues. I have been on the trains, the buses, and walked. So this is my treat to myself. If some of you out there in the audience feel the same, you need to listen up. So Jasmine, my question to you is, what are some of the major differences between leasing and owning a car? Or let's start off, what's leasing and what's financing a car?
So leasing, well, I'll start with financing because that's what most people are familiar with, right?
Yes.
So financing, you're paying someone in installment payments to purchase the vehicle over a period of time, which ends in you owning the vehicle. Leasing, on the other hand, is you renting the vehicle for an allotted amount of time, which may be usually 36 months, sometimes 24 months, sometimes as much as 48 months, I believe. But that's what you're doing. That's what leasing is. So the major difference in leasing and financing is that in leasing, you're turning back in that vehicle within that allotted amount of time, usually that 24 to 48 month period. Financing, you'll be making installment payments from anywhere between 24 months. I think where they're going now, 92 months, I think.
Wow.
I think you can actually finance a car for up to 92 months, which is it's serious. That's a long time.
So what's the true, is there a benefit to doing a lease versus doing, a purchase?
There are many ups and downs, I feel. So I feel you have to understand what kind of person you are as a car person, right? What is it that you're going to use this car for? Where is this car going to be parked? Where are you going to be driving this car? So like in New York City, a lot of times I travel in and out of town a lot. Okay. So I know that in New York City, a lot of people won't drive really expensive cars everywhere around New York City because the streets are horrible and you'll damage your vehicle. So a lot of people will tend to lease those vehicles in New York City, whereas places who are further out south or further out west, they'll finance their cars because the streets are better. They'll put higher miles, but the miles would be highway miles. So it would lead to a healthier car. So as far as leasing goes, the benefit is you don't have the headache of major repairs. So for example, I financed my first car was a finance. I financed a Nissan Sentra. I usually don't give shout outs to them, but we'll be sending you guys a proposal soon. I financed a Nissan Sentra as one of my first cars. And it was about 17,000. It was maybe about a year old, 16,000 miles on it. Came out of an early return on a lease, a voluntary repossession on a lease, and we'll get into that later. But yeah, and it was a brand new car, but the transmission went 3 months in to me having the vehicle, which was I just couldn't believe it. But luckily enough, it was still covered under warranty, the company's manufacturing warranty, so that got repaired. However, if I would have purchased that vehicle outright without that warranty, I wouldn't have that warranty and I would be stuck with that repair. So that's one of the cons to financing. Whereas leasing, I know that that expense is usually covered by the dealers. Actually, the expense is covered by the company itself. I'm just worrying about wear and tear. Maybe tires, brakes, rotors, and depending on the leasing company, it can be some other parts in the vehicle that they don't cover, which sometimes can be sensors, but that's usually covered. So those are some of the differences between leasing and financing.
So you're saying that not only you can lease a new car, you can lease a used or pre-owned car also?
Actually, yeah, that is a thing. So most major dealerships, they'll only lease newer vehicles. By law, sometimes they have to lease newer vehicles depending on the state you're in. However, there are companies who lease out new used vehicles for consumers to use, and you don't see it too often, depends on where you are, but occasionally you'll find these dealers, and you can lease a BMW or a Mercedes that may have 30,000 or 40,000 miles on it. Not sure, because I haven't went that route, and I don't think I would want to go that route, because I know after about that 40 to $50,000 mileage, you'll start incurring some repairs, which may be rotors or maybe shocks, or definitely AC vents. Actually, before that, you'll start replacing AC vents and things like that, filters and stuff. So I know around that 40 to 60,000 mile mark, you'll start looking at some repairs needed to be done, which can cost you anywhere between $150 and up, sometimes $1,000, depending on how much needs to be done and who was driving the vehicle prior and where were they driving the vehicle. So those are factors you have to look at.
So that being said, but that's even with either you purchase it or you lease it, isn't it? That when it's at high mileage, at that point the car has wear and tear. It's tired. If it hasn't been maintained properly, it's even worse. But even if it's been maintained, there's just, I don't know. I think my opinion is that the cars are set to just go to mess after 3 years. After 3 years, it's terrible. So what about the upfront cost between leasing and buying a car?
So we'll start off with financing. So financing, everyone's familiar with the term down payment, which means that you need to put money down to secure your loan with the bank or an institution, right? Okay. Which is not something you always need to do. And a lot of dealerships would tell you, you have to put down a down payment. You have to put down $5,000 or $6,000. And that's not always the case. So I was actually talking to a friend of mine the other day, and I was explaining to them, just lost an earring. So I was explaining to them that depending on the vehicle that you want, a lot of times banks will throw any kind of vehicle out there, a Toyota, a BMW, right? They may not want to finance a BMW, but at that time, a Hyundai might be more advantageous to them. And they may say, this is something we want because this is a high in demand vehicle. It has a good resale value. It's going to be worth more. So they'll risk the chance. So they may not want a $2 or $5,000 down payment on that Hyundai, but they may want a $7,000 payment on the BMW, and both vehicles can be in that same price range. They can be used from $20,000 to $30,000, somewhere in that range. And they'll look at that and say, we don't want to, we want a higher down payment. Whereas leasing is a little different. So, and there are multiple factors in leasing a vehicle, such as there is in financing, right? So when you're leasing, your down payment is one of your major 5 factors you want to look at. And like I said, it's not always necessary. However, it helps bring your monthly down payment, your monthly car payment down to a certain amount. So I'll take, for example, the last car that I leased was a Hyundai Sonata, right? The vehicle ran about $35,000. That was the MSRP price. And what your MSRP price is your manufacturer recommended sales price. And that's what the manufacturer says you should sell this vehicle at. That price is also negotiable. And don't let dealers confuse you and tell you that's not a negotiable price. That price is negotiable. And you can talk down on that price. They're very stern about it, but it's a conversation that you guys can negotiate on. And then you also have your residual value. And your residual value is the value of the vehicle when you bring it back at the end of your lease.
Oh.
And they say your vehicle is going to be worth X amount of dollars at the end of your lease. And at that point, you have the opportunity to finance, which is to buy that car at the end of the lease, or turn it back in.
Oh.
Right? So these are important factors. Those are some of the important factors in leasing a vehicle. And the difference with the down payment, no down payment is mandatory. Don't let anybody tell you that. You don't have to. It just ends up with the higher monthly payment. So don't get ripped in. Don't get shook into throwing down $5,000 or $6,000, $7,000 right off the bat. That's not realistic.
Yeah, that's been my experience also. I mean, especially if your credit is really good, and and you know, in these days, a lot of people, because of COVID, didn't spend as much, so they got some decent numbers. And so my experience was when I did my lease, you know, I paid for the state and sales tax and the registration, and after that, that was it. You know, I didn't see a need to have to put more money down when I'm basically, as I see it, maybe you can correct me or agree, but when I see leasing, I look at it like when I rent an apartment, you know, and if I finance, that's like I'm buying a house, you know. And I'm sort of married to that purchase, whereas with the leasing, I have an opportunity to say, no, I don't want it anymore. I've done good with this. Now I want something more. You know, originally back in the days when I did a first time I ever leased a car, I'll never forget. It was a Buick Regal. And come to think about it, it was about maybe a year old. And so that answers my other question that I had asked you. Can you do a used car? But I did that and it went okay. But back in the days, they had all of these extra charges when you turned the car back. And so I remember with my lease at that time, I got all the dents and the little nicks and crannies taken care of. And then lo and behold, they came with this wand and they ran it across the car and everything I had fixed came with a ding and then a price at the end. And so I understand that now that's not the case. They don't do that.
To my knowledge, no. Last I heard, they actually had a machine that they ran the car through. Funny enough, which is kind of weird. Last I remember, Hyundai was doing that to their vehicles. But to my knowledge, no. Dealers they don't look at that. They don't look at that stuff. If there are any scratches that are deeper than I believe a penny, the width of a penny, if they're deeper than the width of a penny and wider than 6 inches, I believe, then they
Wow.
start to dock your they start to charge you for it at the end. And a lot of times, a lot of dealerships, they'll offer like a $500 credit toward cosmetic repairs or repairs within the vehicle. But they do understand that there's going to be wear and tear. Okay, and it's not realistic that your car is going to come back as spanking brand new the way it looked when you pull it out the dealership the same day. Especially in New York, you know, you're going to have scratches. You're going to may have a dent or two. You may have an angry boyfriend or girlfriend that keys your car. It's going to happen eventually.
Oh Lord, you got
It's
people
gonna happen.
keying cars.
It's a thing. It is a real thing.
That's rough. That's rough. So, as far as the lease compared to the buy, who handles the maintenance on each one? You know, you sort of alluded to the fact that there, you know, maintenance, of course, because the car is in an area. If you drive it, unless you're just going to keep it in the garage and never drive it, there's
Right.
wear and tear. So, who handles that maintenance, like the oil changes and you know, think the regular stuff. And then if there's a major repair, who handles that? Who's responsible?
The dealer. The dealer is responsible for those kind of repairs. It's
Is
your
that for the lease and the buy, or is it just for the lease?
that's the lease. The
Oh,
lease. Because you're renting a vehicle from that company, right? So
okay.
your responsibility is to be there every time within a certain amount of periods, a certain amount of time, excuse me, which is usually maybe like once a year or every 10,000 miles. They'll ask you to come in and get an oil change, get a checkup, get your filters changed, which usually comes to maybe about 120, 150 bucks. Sometimes, a lot of times, they'll waive that fee for the first 2 or 3 checkups on the vehicle, or companies like Hyundai actually waive all the fees. You don't have to pay for any maintenance at all. Everything is free for you
Wow.
to get done. So you have that's another thing you have to think about is the maintenance on the vehicles and how much certain parts cost on these vehicles. So when it comes to like wear and tear items on your car, tires, like I said before, tires, brakes, rotors, shocks, if you're a really hard driver on a car, I mean, you ride right through potholes, you speed over speed bumps, you might want to consider not getting such an expensive car because those things get expensive. To get Porsche tires sometimes can run you $600-700 per tire. Whereas you get yourself a Toyota, it may not be that much. You're looking at maybe 150, maybe $200 per tire. It won't be so bad. And those are some of the things you want to consider along those lines. Now, back on the end of financing, you're responsible for everything.
Oh.
Unless your vehicle is under warranty or dealer warranty, sometimes what they call it, or manufacturer's warranty. Those are 2 different types of warranties. So your manufacturer warranty comes directly from the company itself that you're financing through or you're purchasing the car through. So let's say, for example, my first car was a Nissan. I bought that car from a Nissan dealership, right? So what that meant is that because it had low mileage, it was still covered by the manufacturer's warranty. It was at 16,000 miles and the warranty covered up to 35,000.
Okay.
So anything that went wrong with that vehicle that is of the manufacturer's fault or faulty material from the manufacturer itself, those things were covered by the manufacturer. And then on the other end, you have the dealer's warranty, where the dealer would say, hey, we're going to cover, what do they call that? Engine, transmission.
Oh, parts, major parts.
Yes. And there's a name for it. It's actually slipping my mind. But there's a name for that type of warranty that they have. It's okay.
It's all right. We all know what it means. It means my major parts that they got to cover. If the engine, like you said, you know, you have to give. Yeah, you don't want to have to pay for a new engine. You don't want uh,
Mhm.
to 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 pay for. I mean, you don't mind paying for an oil change, and
Mhm.
you don't mind paying for the the little things and
Yeah,
that need to be done. Tires, that can be costly, but that's also if you in both cases. I'm assuming that you
that's
respond.
in both cases. Yep, because that's a wear and tear item.
Hmm.
Someone can go through tires in a couple of months, whereas someone else may go through tires in 2 years. It
And
depends on the person. It depends on where you're driving. Um, but yeah, those two warranties are important, and those are things that you want to talk to your dealer about. Those are key points you want to put down. What kind of warranty is covered under this vehicle when you're financing? Is this vehicle still under manufacturer's warranty? A lot of times you can purchase a third-party warranty from the dealer itself or from an outside third-party company. And
that
those are some things you may want to consider. We all get those calls. Hey, your car warranty. We heard your car warranty is expiring. This is our last
oh
time
yes,
giving you a call. Yeah, like who cares? You're gonna call me 1,000 times. It's gonna be your 1,000th time last time calling me. So those
yes,
are
I
some of the
have
things you
seen
want to
that a
look
many a times and gotten those same calls. I didn't even have the car, and they sending me notices that you can extend your warranty,
at.
and I'm like,
Right,
"Mm."
right. And I was like, it doesn't even it's a brand new car. It doesn't need a warranty.
And that's
Uh,
very interesting. So, what about
yeah.
use and mileage? Um, I know that there are some limitations with, I believe, with a lease
Mhm.
compared to if you finance. What are those situations?
So, like I said, when you're renting a vehicle, when you're leasing a vehicle, the deal is that you're going to use this amount of value of this vehicle, right? Over this allotted amount of time. So when you're looking at mileage, they'll say, okay, so you're going to be giving, whether it's 10,000 miles, which is kind of like the standard, 10,000 miles per year, we're going to allow you on your lease. So if you're leasing for 36 months, that's 3 years, you're looking at about 30,000 miles. And a lot of companies, they offer, you can purchase additional miles or you can set your lease at a higher mileage level. A lot of times I personally would say set it at the standard because you don't know how much you're going to drive unless you know you're a real serious driver like myself. I drive everywhere. I do not like taking the trains. I do not taking the buses. I may or may not call a cab, but I drive everywhere. So I know right off the bat that I want to get anywhere between 12 to 15,000 miles, right? However, the thing is, if I sign a lease that has 10,000 miles on it, that's fine.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the lease, if I'm over my miles, they're going to charge me the same amount of money at the end, which is usually 20 cents per mile, that
Okay.
they're going to charge me if I purchase those miles in the beginning of my lease. It's almost the same thing. So why not just take a little gamble and wait until the end of your lease and say,
Okay.
well, I didn't even go over those miles. I'm under those miles, which is considered you're adding value to your vehicle. And that's something else we can negotiate at the end of your lease. But yeah, I would usually wait until the end. I usually go standard. My standard is 12,000 miles per year. And that's the standard I like to stay at because I know whether I drive a little less or I drive a little more, I know that that's where I'm at. Whereas a finance, there are no stipulations in the finance about how much you can drive. Now there are 7 factors in your finance that play a part with that play a major role actually. And you want to look at these things. So when you finance a vehicle, you're paying that set price for that vehicle. Let's say 20,000, right? Over time, every year, your vehicle is depreciating in value. And what happens a lot of times is you end up with what's called an upside down loan, where your loan, the amount of money you owe on your vehicle is higher than the amount of money that your vehicle is worth. And we call that an upside down loan.
Similar to
So,
your house. Yeah. Okay.
right,
So your
right,
value of your car is less than um what the no, the value, yeah, the value is less than what you owe.
correct.
Oh.
So there's usually a gap between those two amounts. and that's where you get the term gap insurance. So
Okay.
right now we're talking about financing, right? So when you finance a vehicle, most banks would require full coverage on the
Okay.
vehicle. Now, gap insurance isn't always mandatory when you finance a vehicle, right? However, it's highly recommended because if I drive a lot, I purchased a car for 20,000. I'm doing all this ripping and running down the streets in and out of town. I'm traveling with my homegirls. We're all hanging out and having fun. And I get into an accident, right? And then they do an appraisal on my vehicle and they say, hey, your car's only worth $10,000 because you put 20,000 miles on your car in 4 months. It's only worth $20,000, right? $10,000. So I say there's a $10,000 difference. So the bank is going to take that car and they're going to say, hey, your car's only worth 10,000, but you still owe another 10. So what are we going to do here? There's a $10,000 difference, and you have to figure out how you're going to pay that money back. A lot of people will make the mistake of rolling it into a new finance, meaning taking that negative equity.
Why is that a mistake?
Because you're adding additional money onto another car, and you're putting yourself deeper into debt. When it all could have been situated if you made sure you had gap insurance on your vehicle, where your gap insurance would pay that difference on that vehicle. And that's something you have to make sure that you have that gap insurance, because then you'll end up an additional $10,000 in debt. You're paying for liability already. Your car's a liability unless you're making it an asset, but in reality, it's a liability for 70% of people. So those are things you want to pay attention to. Whereas now that's financing. Whereas leasing, gap insurance is usually already written into the contract, because you don't own this car. This car belongs to the company. You're renting this car, so they want to make sure that by the time you bring this car back, this car is covered. If anything happens before you bring it back, that their asset is covered, because they're going to get that car back and they're going to mark it back up to a price and sell it to somebody as a finance and go through the process again and make more money on it. So they want to make sure that their car is covered. So it's usually given from the manufacturer or from the company itself, that gap insurance coverage, and is included in your own insurance as well.
That sounds fantastic. It's a real clear cut. It really sounds like, and I hate to say it, but it's more advantageous, I guess, unless you really don't drive your car a lot, is to just lease it, because the cars, as we know it from a financial point of view, as you drive it off the lot, it's depreciating. It goes down in value.
Yeah.
So let's put it this way. I know with leasing, you're not targeted to pay the whole amount of the value of the car. How does that leasing work? How do they determine what you get to, the amount that you're going to pay for this lease?
Don't let them beat you in your head. First of all, don't let folks beat you in your head. No, you're not paying the full value of the car. You're renting the value. You're renting the vehicle, which means that you're only going to use a portion of the value of this vehicle, because you're returning the vehicle, right? So we got to think. We have to think in that way, that this is not ours. You don't own it. It doesn't belong to you. You're giving it back. So when you're leasing a vehicle, sorry, I lost track of the question. Really quick, what was the question again?
Yeah, as far as with the now I done forgot. I got brain freeze.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, so you're not paying 100% of the car.
Right, the differences between depreciating the car. That's funny.
Yeah. But we both had a brain freeze. It must be the
had brain freeze. But depreciation of the car. How do they determine how
much of the vehicle you're going to pay for this
lease?
So on average, right now the car market is really up. They're upping the prices of the cars because there's a shortage of inventory, because there's a shortage of chips, and that's usually because there's a shortage of aluminum. I know that because I listen to you. So there's a shortage of
what's these chips? Because I'm hearing this all over the place. What is it? Is because all the cars are electronical or something?
They're electronic. Yep. That's exactly why. A lot of the cars, they're smarter cars now. You have a chip, kind of like a computer chip, that helps regulate different things going on in the car. So a lot of higher end cars, I would say, who are usually like the limited editions of that vehicle, or the higher end trim line of those vehicles, a lot of them use a chip. And some car companies, lower, I guess maybe like a Sentra, when I say that, like Sentras or Toyota Corollas, some of them use chips as well.
Okay.
But because there's a shortage with the chips, that's the reason why the vehicle prices are so high. So right now you have a lot of vehicles, they're going for 50% of the car value. They're saying that, basically meaning that if you want to rent this car for 3 years, you're going to use up 50% of the car's value. That's called, and that's not true. You're not going to use half of the car's value. It's not realistic, not in 3 years. You're looking, you want to be more in that 30 to 42% range. That's how much of the vehicle you're actually going to use. That's how much of the value of the vehicle you're actually going to use. And then it also depends on the type of vehicle that you're getting. If you're getting a Porsche, Porsches usually hold their value a lot longer.
Okay.
Their resale value is a lot higher. So that means that you're going to use less of the value of the vehicle, but your lease may still be high price in the high 7s or the 6s, so forth and so forth.
A month?
Whereas you're looking anywhere between the 6s and up, $600 per month and up. Yeah.
A month.
And up. You're looking for about a Porsche. And like I said, factors like down payment play a role in how much your monthly payment will be. But right off the bat, you're looking about $600 or better minimum. Whereas you may lease a Toyota Corolla, where you'll be looking at $150 a month, because the car is only worth about $22,000 off the rip. And they'll say, hey, you know, this car's not worth a lot. So in 3 years, it's definitely not going to be worth a lot. So, you know, you're going to end up paying $12,000, $13,000 of the car's value, which is half of the car's value, but it's only $12,000 or $13,000 over your lease, whereas it's not a lot of money.
Is that also, like you just said, is $12,000, $13,000, and then that's divided by the term of the lease? Like if you take a 3-year, okay, all right. So it can be more economical, but that's still determining your credit level, correct?
Credit plays a big role in leasing. Most companies require that you have a minimum of a 620 credit score.
Okay.
Baseline to lease. However, that's not always the situation. You can have a lower credit score and still qualify for a lease. They may say, we want a down payment because you have bad credit and we don't know if you're going to pay us on time. So we want you to put some money down. We need some commitment from you. And that may be an issue. And that's a problem a lot of people who have lower credit scores face, is they sometimes they are required to put a down payment down. But if you have over 620, 615, and upwards, you're looking at, you can get yourself a lease, and you may not need to put a down payment down, but you may not get that Mercedes C-Class, or the E-Class, simmer down and go get you an A-Class, which is one of their lower tier vehicles. Or you may not even be able to get a Mercedes at all. You may have to look at something more economical, like a Nissan Sentra or Toyota Corolla, something priced a little lower on the tier, and take a look at that. There's nothing wrong with those cars. Those cars are really good. Sentras are really good cars. I would say that there are a lot of cars that are $20,000, $22,000. Some of the companies even have cars that start at $16,000. You can get you a brand new car that starts at $16,000. Brand new off the lot. You don't have to kick your feet to start it. I'll tell you that.
Or do the Fred Flintstone yabba dabba doo.
And they're really nice. They come with navigation. They come with backup cameras. They're just smaller vehicles. They're smaller cars. They're beginners cars. But listen, 4 wheels beat 2 feet. So
I hear you.
Nothing wrong with it.
We got a question. Is it smarter to buy a car, an electric, or gas car?
So I think this is the great debate amongst men and women in today's society, because we're moving to an era where we're leaving gas and fossil fuels, and we're moving to wireless electricity, other forms of electricity, a lot of other things going on. So it depends on where you are. So electric vehicles tend to be a little more expensive than gas vehicles. They require possibly more maintenance. I'm not too sure, but sometimes in some cases they require a little more maintenance. The conversation has been around, is it more expensive? Is it worth paying that extra money to lease or finance that electric car, whereas I'm going to finance this gas guzzler, right? In some cases, depending on the car you get, yes, it is more advantageous. The same amount of money that you would spend in gas, you'll be spending in that car payment, which can work. Sometimes you'll break even depending on your occupation. I was in a Lyft the other day, and I was talking to the driver, and he was driving a Tesla. And I said, this is interesting, because I know a lot of companies now are allowing electric driving cars on the road for corporate reasons, for corporate use. So I said, okay, I asked him, I said, why, what kind of car did you have before this? And why did you get a Tesla? He said, well, gas is too high, because in New York City, gas is about $5, almost $5 a gallon. And I know in some places it goes upwards.
Yeah,
so
$7 a gallon, yeah.
It's crazy. It's
California
ridiculous.
is really ridiculous.
I mean,
so, yeah, gas is, as you called it, a gas guzzler.
Yeah.
Until this war situation is cleared up, I mean, gas prices are astronomical.
Especially if you have a heavy foot like me, yeah. Yeah. So the conversation is, do you break even, right? I know, like, as I was speaking to this gentleman in his Tesla, he was telling me, on average, for an average week when he had his gas vehicle, he would spend anywhere between $80 to $100 per week in gas. And that's understandable. You drive around the city all day. However, with his electric vehicle, his Tesla, he said he only spends $30, if that. That's like a maximum. That's the highest he spent.
That's to charge it?
For charging his electric vehicle. Yeah. And that's the equivalent of 2 or 3, maybe 4 gas tanks. So you have to look at that, and you say, wow, okay, that's different. And then you have the arguments on people saying, well, where are you going to charge your car?
That's what I was just about to ask you. I'm like, yeah, but there's more gas stations out here. I mean, you won't be caught on the road and you just got disconnected.
I think that's probably like a myth that all the gas companies want us to believe in. Everywhere you go, there are more charging stations than we think there are. I mean, right, the other day I was driving on the Henry Hutchinson Highway, I believe it was. There's a charging station right off of one of the exits that you can get a full charge on. A lot of parking lots here in New York City, you can charge your vehicle in the parking lot, and they may charge you only just to pay for that amount of electricity that you use, whereas you may have to pay. They may not make you pay for parking. So that's a myth. That's a myth. There are plenty of places to park. A lot of electric vehicles will show you where you can park on your map. Where you can charge on your map. They'll show you charging stations that are available and how far they are, which one you need to stop at before you run out of electricity charge. And there are precautions being done. So that's a myth. That's a myth.
I'm wondering if AAA has it where, where they come with the gas, do they come with the electrical charge?
I know.
Boot you up, I mean, we're moving into a very technological, we're in the technology world. And so, it's just, I know for myself, I'm like, do I want to trust? Is there something? And by the way, are there cars that, I'm sure there are, that have both? Where you have gas hybrids,
those hybrids,
And are the electrical cars and the hybrid cars costing more, than the good old gas guzzler?
Well, they have they're actually supposed to be better. So you have some like a Nissan Leaf, which is one the Prius, the Toyota Prius, which
Mm-hmm.
is it's a mix of the both. It's like a partial half gas, half electricity, and it charges itself. Um, I'm not too sure. There are different types of hybrids. You have gas and electric hybrids. You have gas and hydrogen hybrids. Um, so it depends. I'm not too sure about the hybrid vehicles. I know the Prius has been holding its weight for quite some time, and it's been the number one pick for a hybrid vehicle for quite some time,
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, yeah, I would probably go with the Prius to be a safe choice. But as far as the hybrid vehicles, I've heard there's some downs about the hybrids, but I'm not 100% sure, I'll be honest.
That's
I'm
okay because
not
this
sure.
is a new world. This is a new
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
I had another question as far as people love to
Mm-hmm.
tailor their cars to make it, more theirs. They'll put what's that when they tint their windows and all of that
Girl,
stuff. Can they, if between a lease and ownership, do you have the ability with a lease to alter or?
let me tell you something. The first thing I do when I get my car is slap tints on my windows. That is the first thing I do, and it's perfectly fine when you lease your car.
Oh,
Your tents can be removed off the windows. It's
oh,
perfectly fine. You can tint your windows. Now, when it comes to making other modifications to the vehicle, cosmetic modifications
mm-hmm.
usually are okay when you lease a vehicle. That's a
Okay.
conversation you want to have. That's something that you may need to negotiate in your lease itself.
Okay.
And you want to bring those things up as you're discussing your lease when you're talking about renting this car. Can I make modifications? Can I add a spoiler? Can you modify the exhaust? Can you add an intake valve? These are things that us driving folks, we add things like that to our cars. But that's a conversation you want to have because they may say, no, you need to return the vehicle the way it was when you got it, which means that you have to take that spoiler off and you have to take that front bumper off and all these other pieces. And you have to take off those rims, and you can't paint the company's rims that come on the car. Some people, they do that. You may not be able to do that. But most companies, they don't care about tints. And I don't care. I'll slap tints on my car. I don't want people looking at me all day.
Okay,
So,
that's it. And then the bottom line is the world of ownership. So I think you started off with saying, as a lease, you do not own the car,
you
but
do not own.
and with the end of payments on a finance, you own the car, right?
Yes, that is
Uh,
correct.
but with the lease, what happens after like your lease time is up? I sort of know what that answer is, but I want to hear it from you.
So when your lease is up, the dealership would usually call you anywhere between 5 months. They usually start around that 6 month mark, 5 or 6 month mark, and they'll start contacting you and saying, "Hey, your lease is ending." You'll get mail from people companies you didn't even know existed. I mean, you've got a couple from Chevrolet. You didn't even drive a Chevrolet. You've got BMW offers, all kind of stuff going on. People from many places will send you offers, and you may want to take a look at them.
Well, what
Now,
type of offer is that? What to
they
take your?
just want you to come and trade your lease in to them,
Oh,
so you
oh,
can come and lease another vehicle from them.
oh.
That's all. They're just trying to get your business. They're trying to earn your business. And the leasing company will call you and they'll say, "Hey, it's time to turn your lease in." You'll say, "Okay." So you have the option at the end of your lease to either return your vehicle or purchase your vehicle.
Okay.
A lot of people will go the purchasing route. Sometimes you may have $16,000, $17,000 left on the purchase. If you decide to turn your lease back in, send it back in and get a new one. You go
Mm,
through the entire lease process again. When you're leasing, you're signing a contract
yes.
with the company. So just look at it as your contract to rent this vehicle is complete.
Hmm.
Time to start a new contract. and you have your contracts. Either you're going to rent this vehicle, a separate vehicle again, or you're going to sign a contract to purchase this vehicle with the bank or somebody, or you can always pay cash too. You don't have to go the bank route to finance. You can pay cash for your vehicle, and don't let them tell you it's going to cost you more. Don't let them beat you in your head again. If they say, oh, well, if you want to purchase your car after the lease, it's an additional $7,000. No, the answer is no. No, it is not an additional $7,000. Call the Better Business Bureau, okay, and let them know what's going on. Don't let them do that to you.
Yeah,
but
I had a client that wanted to buy.
do.
Yeah, she wanted to buy her car outright, in cash,
Mm-hmm.
and the company told her that she needed to pay an extra $2,000 because she was paying cash. And I was like, well, if you're paying cash, it shouldn't be where you pay more,
Yeah.
So, but it's all, my opinion is that car dealerships are just like casinos. They go in one way or another. And sometimes it's not the greatest situation, but, they've got you. If you need to get a car that you can shop, you can shop, because you taught me about shopping. And you also taught me about if my lease is up, I not necessarily because of COVID, I had low mileage and we got this issue of inventory out here. And it was really great when you told me that I could extend my lease at least another year.
Yes, that is correct. You can. You call up your company, you let them know, hey, I want to know if I can get an extension on my lease. And a lot of times they'll extend your lease for you. You'll maintain the same payments. You may pay an additional, depending on what your tax bracket is. Your tax rate is where you're located. You'll have to pay taxes again for that year, and then they'll give you additional mileage every year for the vehicle, depending on how long you want to keep it or how long they allow. Some companies give you a month-by-month lease. Some companies will let you do a full year or maybe a full 6 months, depending on where you're leasing from. But that is a choice. Now, I'll drop some sauce on you guys, right? So before the pandemic, you have companies, online car buying companies like Carvana or Vroom, right? Whereas you can take your lease vehicle and sell it to these companies and they'll pay you money for it. And a lot of times it's usually more than the dealerships are willing to offer or more than the car is worth. So you'll end up making additional profit on the vehicle, but they stopped that. They nipped that in the butt. And now a lot of companies are only allowing you to bring the vehicle back to the dealership, where you can either purchase the car or lease a new vehicle.
They got hit
a little bit.
They got hit. Because that would be I see this all the time on the television, talking about, if you got Carfax, bring your car in. And as long as you kept all of your stuff up to date, you can make money on it. And I was like, look, usually when it sounds that good, there's a little catch somewhere.
Of course.
So, now I see they've been changed the rules a bit because people were getting smart. But someone's going to find another little loophole, I'm sure.
We'll talk about that another time because we didn't cover everything on this show today, and there's some really important things we got to cover, like the money factor, learning how to calculate your lease the right way, what factors play a role in calculating your lease. What
I would love to do is make the offer that you be so kind. I know you're very busy with Soul City, but you have this genius. That's another side gig that you
think my mom and my dad.
But that side gig could be that's a little extra, giving that advice. I know you are the VP with Soul City and definitely with special events. And I'm so happy you took this time because I know I can trust your words. It's hard to find folks that you can talk about this car thing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So I would definitely make the offer if you'd be so kind to be able to come back at some point and tell us about how that is, the calculations are done. An informed buyer is a powerful person. It's very
Exactly.
So this has been so wonderful. I want to thank you, Jasmine Pfeiffer, for your time and your knowledge. Thank you for coming on to Soul City. I know our time is up, but I'm offering for you to come back.
I'll be back.
And definitely, I say to the audience, I hope you learned something, as I did. Every time I listened to Jasmine, I learned something new. So take advantage of it. And if you have some questions, you can contact us at Access Wealth Nation. But also, I don't want you inundating Jasmine. So if you have a question, send it to Anaja Enterprises Inc. at gmail.com, and I'll find a way to get it to her. But I think, Jasmine, you got a business getting ready to hook up here.
I see.
People need the advice. Counseling on leasing versus buying. So again, I hope you all learned something. And again, thank you for listening to Access Wealth Nation, and come back every Thursday at 6 p.m. and join us for more information and your checkup from the neck up. Thank you all.
She was told that she couldn't play with the boys. She was told that they were too big, too rough, too strong. She was told to give up her dreams and move on. She was told to just be pretty, be quiet, be a lady. She was told that women had to stay on their side of the court, stay in your lane. Playing and competing with men was insane. She was told that men and women would never be equal. Dreaming like that would only be linked to your mind, to your soul. She never listened. She knew that their thinking was old. She is magic. She is the definition of spirit. She is what champions are made of. She is magic.